When you think about the top running backs from the 2022 college football season, maybe guys such as Blake Corum, Deuce Vaughn, and Rocket Sanders come to mind, but one player seemingly put his entire program on his back and helped lead them from irrelevance to near the top of the college football world for a little while. His name was Chase Brown. He was a dark horse Heisman contender for most of the season, led the entire country in rushing for a while, and now is the future of the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if you knew this, but he has a twin brother named Sydney, and both of them were drafted into the NFL a couple months ago. They had a crazy story where they both came from Canada and had to stay with an unknown family before becoming under-recruited 3-star players. Somehow, despite going to different schools, leveraged that into decent college careers before they reunited and both became stars. Sydney became the anchor of the defense, and Chase became the star on offense. Together, they made Illinois football one of the best teams in the country, and Chase Brown was absolutely insane. In today's video, I want to tell his story. We're going to talk about how he went from Canada to a host family in Florida to Western Michigan to superstardom at Illinois and now the NFL. But before we get started, be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new and love college football content, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Chase Brown. So going back in time, the twins of Sydney and Chase Brown were something else. His mom said, quote, "When they were 9 years old, they were special, but you didn't know how special they were." His mom also said it was surreal to see how they came from London, Ontario to the top of every media outlet in the United States. But wait, how on earth did this happen? Sydney was a low-ranked recruit, and Chase was an under-recruited running back who started out at Western Michigan. Well, going back in time, the family grew up in London, Ontario, and the brothers always knew they wanted to play football. Their goals were high, their grandfather, uncle, and father all played football, and their dad even played in the CFL for 3 years. Their mother was a figure skater, and athleticism was in their genes. They played several sports and also loved martial arts, but never ended up playing hockey like most Canadian kids do. Eventually, they gravitated to something with only a niche popularity and played on the youth league football team. As young boys, they would watch the NFL games with their uncle, who was a Patriots fan, and their grandfather, who was a Cowboys fan. They didn't get many games in their hometown, but they watched every team and every game they could. Football became a big part of their lives, and the brothers wanted to play football. Unfortunately, the country was probably not going to lead them to playing on the TV. The story started in Canada, as while they were at a 7-on-7 tryout event, that is when they met Justin Dillon. He was the owner of 730 Scouting Service, which helps connect kids between Canada and the US. When he first saw the Brown twins, he said, "I just knew they had the it factor." He built his career on identifying Canadian prospects and helped them get to US prep schools. Both the Browns were great football players and were going to be a package deal. Eventually, St. Stephen's in Bradenton, Florida had room, and they needed a player or two to break through. There was one problem though. They'd have to find somewhere to stay. That's where I introduce you to Phil Yates and his wife Karen. They spent years taking their kids to soccer, tennis, football, and even field hockey, and when their children went off to college, they missed it and wanted to be around it again. So they decided they'd take in the Brown twin. It wasn't easy for their mother, but she knew it was what was best for their future. She said, quote, "It was the most difficult thing I've ever done. It was totally unnatural, leaving your kids in another country with people you don't know. I cried the entire ride back." They ended up happily accepting the Brown twins despite what many others said. I mean, if you think about it, they were accepting two 16-year-old strangers to come into their house and be responsible for them. I guess the family saw it as a unique opportunity and they were excited. They were told to eat, go to school, and play football, and it was all worth it when they watched them win their first state title in 2016, and at that moment, everyone involved knew the decision was right. It would change once again. It would change though. The dad would get a job in Texas, and then the family across the street decided to take the Brown twins in. They didn't cause any problems, got along with their young kids, and even attended the kids' flag football games. Turning back to the field, Chase ran for 1,500 yards and 27 touchdowns as a senior, which made him a decently big college football recruit, and his dream was going to come true. In 2016, he got his first scholarship offer from Syracuse, but he was waiting for more. He eventually got offers from Illinois, Purdue, Indiana, Ole Miss, Syracuse, UCF, and Tulane, but chose to go to Western Michigan. I scratched my head when I first heard this, but apparently they have a really good aviation program, and Chase loved that. He said, quote, "After living with Phil Yates, who was a test pilot in the Navy for 25 years, Chase was all about becoming a pilot. Even as other offers came in, he was set on Western Michigan, taking no other official visits." He said, quote, "I would have hung up the cleats, put the helmet away, put the pads away, and went and been a pilot." He enjoyed success running track as well, as in his first 2 years, he went to the state finals both times. He thought he could play football and then eventually become a pilot, but little did he know how good he could actually become at football, and that was his gift. According to 24/7 Sports, Chase was a 3-star recruit, the number 78 running back, and the 1,332nd best player in the class of 2018. So how would he do at Western Michigan while his brother Sidney was away at Illinois? Well, when he arrived at Western Michigan, he was hoping to become a star for the Broncos as he played in all 13 games. He ran the ball 71 times for 352 yards and also had 10 catches for 75 yards. Despite all those touches, Brown didn't reach the end zone once. Interestingly enough, he roomed with Jaden Reed at Western Michigan, who ended up transferring to Michigan State, and they both went on to play in the Big Ten and made the NFL. He decided it was time to make a change, and hopefully it could be like the old days. He said, quote, "When I put my name in the portal and the opportunity to go to Illinois came up, it was one that I couldn't pass up. It was just like the old days when we played on the same football team." Since a few years have now passed, his mother now says that she's so happy it all worked out. She says she chose the option that broke her heart, but gave her kids the best chance to achieve a dream and see success. As both Sidney and Chase would arrive at Illinois, they became a huge deal in practice. Coach Bielema said there was a rule passed that would not let him and his brother be on the field at the same time because they were so competitive. In 2019, Chase would appear in one game against Rutgers before he saw a more expanded role in 2020. He ended up playing in 8 games, with his best 2 performances coming against Rutgers and Nebraska. He had 110 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Huskers and 131 yards against the Scarlet Knights. He finished with 540 yards and 3 scores. 2021 would end up being the breakthrough performance for Chase as he scored an early touchdown against Virginia and then had 257 yards and 2 touchdowns against Charlotte just 2 weeks after that. He was pretty inconsistent, as one game you get 30 yards and the next game you go for 200. In the 9-overtime thrilling victory over Penn State, he ran for 223 yards in the score and helped them pull off that improbable victory. A couple weeks later, he had 147 yards against number 20 Minnesota, and then finished the year against Northwestern with 112 yards and a touchdown. He ended up finishing with 1,005 yards and 5 scores. He was a pretty solid running back, but no one expected the kind of season he'd have in 2022. Let's go ahead and start out. Here is his stat line. He had 151 yards and 2 touchdowns against Wyoming, 199 yards against Indiana, 146 yards against Virginia, 108 against Chattanooga, 129 against Wisconsin, 146 against Iowa, 180 against Minnesota, 149 against Nebraska, 136 against Michigan State, 140 against Michigan, 98 against Purdue, and 61 against Northwestern. He went over 100 yards 10 times and almost did it 11 times. That is why he slowly built up a Heisman-worthy resume, and he was the bell cow running back. He said, quote, 41 carries is a lot, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win games. Coach Bielema said, if there's a better player in college football that's had an effect on his program, I'd like to know who it is. Brown was truly one of the best running backs, if not the best back in college football, and he elevated Illinois football into the rankings, and they had a legit shot at winning the Big Ten West. Unfortunately, a couple dominoes would not fall their way, and they would miss out on it. Part of the reason Brown had so much success is because of offensive coordinator Barry Lunney Jr. At UTSA, he helped Sincere McCormick have 2 straight 1,400-yard seasons, so honestly, it makes a lot of sense in retrospect. Illinois also has a tremendous offensive line, and Brown was just gifted. In total, he finished with 1,643 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. While he didn't get to the end zone as many times as you probably think, he was still a star. He declared for the 2023 NFL Draft and was eventually selected with the 163rd overall pick in the 5th round by the Cincinnati Bengals. He said, quote, when I think back to middle school, I tried to envision playing at a D1 school. It was impossible. It was honestly impossible to envision. The fact that we're at this university and playing at a high level is something we could have only dreamed of. Now, he was in the NFL. What do the Bengals scouts think of this pick? Well, he has track-like speed, is a great run blocker, is pretty shifty, and can also catch passes out of the backfield. Joe Mixon will be the number 1 back for the Bengals, but Chase Brown could easily play his way into that second spot right away. Most NFL teams that see a lot of success have 2 really good running backs, and I do believe Chase Brown has a chance to be that guy. He could be a weapon for Joe Burrow and could help take the load off Mixon, and honestly, he could be one of the best running backs from this class. I'm really excited to watch what he's going to do, and the Bengals running backs coach said, quote, he's already a pro. He's had a pro's mindset since college, and with his great character and work ethic, it's going to translate well. Based on what I've read, it seems like he'll probably take over that number 2 spot at running back, hopefully have a good career with Cincinnati, and his story is insane. He went from Canada to a host family to Western Michigan to Illinois and now the NFL. The odds of that happening were pretty low, and his brother Sidney also got drafted in the 3rd round, so it makes the story even better. But what do you guys think? What do you think of this story? What do you think of Chase Brown? And what rookie should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video. subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.